question is that the address be agreed to. And before I call the honourable member for Maranoa, I remind the House that this is the honourable member's first speech, and I ask the House to extend to him the usual courtesies. And I also personally would like to welcome my northern neighbour. We share about 800-kilometre boundary. The member for Maranoa.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. It is truly a great honour to stand in this nation's 45th Parliament representing the people of Maranoa as their 10th representative. I am extremely proud to stand here today as the third consecutive generation of the Littleproud family to serve the people of Queensland in all three tiers of government. My grandfather, George Littleproud, at a local level as Deputy Mayor of the Chinchilla Shire, my father, Brian, at a state level as Minister for Education and the Environment, and now I have ascended at a federal level, an achievement of which I and my family are incredibly proud and humbled by. Maranoa is one of Australia's 75 federation seats and the nation's 5th largest electorate in land size, spanning more than 730,000 square kilometres across Queensland, encapsulating some of our country's most diverse and productive land, but more importantly, some of its most resilient, hard-working and resourceful people. Maranoa extends along more than 90% of the Queensland-New South Wales border, all of the Queensland-South Australian border and nearly half of the Queensland-Northern Territory border. From Stanthorpe in the south-east to Birdsville in the far south-west, Winton and Badoorie in the north-west to Kingaroy and Blackbutt in the north-east, Maranoa covers more than 3 times the size of Victoria and is managed at a local level by 17 regional and shire councils and 7 state seats in the Queensland Parliament. Before I go any further, can I firstly acknowledge the 37 traditional owner groups across Maranoa, covering the Eyre, Riverine, Kouris and Mouris regions. Can I acknowledge their elders and the significant role they play as custodians in the preservation and advancement of Australia's First Peoples culture in Maranoa. Mr Deputy Speaker, Maranoa, by reason of its sheer size, is a diverse electorate of industry and opportunity, ranging from mining with the development of the gas and coal industry, manufacturing primarily in the value-adding of our agricultural products, to the increasingly important tourism industry. Tourism continues to mature in Maranoa as our brand develops and travellers gain an appreciation of our unique lifestyle. Tourism continues to play an important part in the diversification of our small communities and their economies, particularly through drought. However, agriculture is the common thread that links each and every community across Maranoa together. It is the major contributor to every community's economy in terms of employment, return to producers and support to small businesses in each of our communities. Mr Deputy Speaker, I'm proud to say I've lived and worked in Maranoa all my life. I grew up in the little town of Chinchilla, some 3.5 hours west of Brisbane. Growing up in Chinchilla was the quintessential childhood in a small country town. Plenty of mates, cricket, football, tennis, swimming, fishing and camping. You weren't just raised by your family in Chinchilla, but by the entire community. My pulse always lifts when I go home to Chinchilla. It's the knowledge and comfort that you're in the familiar surrounds of family. Chinchilla made me who I am today, and I am forever grateful to the investment the community of Chinchilla has invested in me. Professionally, I was fortunate enough to forge a career in banking, living and working in many parts of the electorate, such as Miles, Nanango, Charleville, St George, Stanthorpe and ultimately Warwick, where my wife and I now live and raise our 3 boys, Tom, Hugh and Harry, who are all here tonight. My wife and I have not only made the ultimate investment in Maranoa by bringing our family up there, but we have also invested in our own small business in Warwick, employing local people, because we believe in the future of our community and Maranoa. Mr Deputy Speaker, I don't want to spend my time today talking about my life story. Instead, I'd like to take this opportunity to talk about the people who have entrusted me to represent them and the challenges we face, but more importantly, the great opportunities that lie ahead of us in Maranoa. Fundamentally, I believe a federal government's responsibility is to not impose in the daily lives of Australians, but to create an environment and the infrastructure around them so they can generate their own wealth that subsequently builds healthier communities. Preparing for this speech today, I took the time to read the maiden speech delivered in May 1990 by my predecessor, the Honourable Bruce Scott, who passionately and diligently represented Maranoa for more than 25 years. And I'd like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to Bruce for his dedication to Maranoa and its people. It is interesting to note that in that speech, Bruce described the hardship some parts of the electorate were suffering after devastating floods. Ironically, today, many parts of Maranoa face a greater threat from years of enduring drought. The drought in central Western and south-western Queensland over the past 5 years has been an economic, environmental and human catastrophe, and it continues to unravel before our eyes. While recent rain has created cautious optimism, it will take more than a few rain events to allow communities to recover in full. But to reinforce the resilience of the people of Maranoa, this glimmer of hope is enough for them to continue on. Some would say it's a country thing, but I say it's a pride thing. Pride in our communities and pride in our families. Nelson Mandela once said, "The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall." That's exactly what the people of Maranoa are doing. Whether it's flood, fire or drought, the people of Maranoa have forged livelihoods, but more importantly, communities that have in turn nurtured some of our country's finest. All my professional life has been involved in business, and I have therefore built a strong passion for economic development. I believe economic development not only creates opportunity for individual wealth, but more importantly, it builds healthier communities. Communities where you can educate your children, receive good health care, have good employment prospects, travel the world from, and above all, call home. The trade agreements that this coalition government negotiated over the last 3 years is fundamental to setting the right environment for Maranoa. The direct impact, particularly for agriculture, has been profound, with those benefits finally being realised at a profit and loss level now. All across the electorate, I've been listening to people who tell me of the tangible benefits of these agreements. 3 weeks ago, I was told by one of our beef producers that only 2 years ago they were receiving $400 a head for his steers, but today he's receiving more than 3 times this amount. This is putting money into the pockets of every producer, but importantly, flowing back into our local communities and stimulating their economies. But perhaps the most salient reinforcement of these trade agreements will deliver for all Maranoa came from feedback I received this year when I visited a drought-affected farmer in central Western Queensland. In the depths of financial and emotional despair, after 4 years of debilitating drought, when asked whether they actually saw a future in agriculture, the response I got was that the only person important to them in politics in Australia was a man called Andrew Robb, our then Trade Minister, because they knew that when it did rain, all the hard work that they'd done for years keeping their breeding stock alive would be worth something, and there would be a future for them and their children. In this producer's moment of utter despair and helplessness, the appreciation of the benefits these agreements would provide them and the fact it became a beacon of hope that gave them the strength and courage to fight on is a moment I will never forget. Trade agreements have been criticised by some who falsely yearn for the perceived comfort of economic policies of yesteryear. But the world has moved past them. In simplistic terms, we have a population of 24 million, but produce enough food for 75 million. So if we don't engage the world, we won't have communities like Longreach, Charleville, Roma, Kingaroy or Dalby. We in Maranoa need to embrace the global economy more than anybody. We have what the world wants, and our language and our actions need to reflect that. We are now global players. We need to engage the world like we never have before because the opportunities are boundless. The people of Maranoa aren't victims. We aren't some economic backwater, but instead we hold the keys to our own and the nation's prosperity. It's a matter of us grabbing it. While the coalition government has done an outstanding job in creating the right environment around the people of Maranoa in negotiating trade deals and providing small business tax cuts to the 25,500 small business owners in Maranoa to take advantage of these opportunities, it's imperative that we as a federal government complement this with the tools of the 21st century. The great innovators of our country and adopters of technology and science have always been in electorates like Maranoa because we have to be. Our history in this space runs deep, with the humble beginnings of Qantas nearly 100 years ago in the outback of Maranoa. To this day, Qantas is the only airline in the world to have built its own aircraft in a small hangar in the outback town of Longreach. Commercial aviation in this country was born because of the vision and the need by those who pioneered this great country. Fast forward this to today, where cutting-edge scientific research and technology has seen the development and production of the Queen Garnet plum in Stanthorpe, a fruit with the highest levels of antioxidants and anthocyanins in the world, using the best minds and hands in Maranoa, amongst the best in the world. They are changing the shape of food and health globally. So when you define the strategic infrastructure needed to continue to forge Maranoa ahead and to complement its people, it comes down to one word: connectivity. It is a continual investment in telecommunications and transport infrastructure that connects our products to the world, that will create the innovation and wealth that will make Maranoa a community of choice for people to live in and do business. Rolling out the NBN to more than 68,000 households and businesses right across Maranoa over the next 2 years is paramount, but complementing this with mobile phone connectivity is essential. The businesses of Maranoa are operating multi-million-dollar cutting-edge technology that requires connectivity to engage in a global economy. Mr Deputy Speaker, it's not just about the economic benefits of providing these digital tools, but there are social responsibilities that need to be met by us as a government. The benefits of telehealth has huge potential, not only in improving health outcomes in regional and remote areas, but will also save money for patients and taxpayers in reducing significant travel and hospital costs. But more importantly, it will allow people to be treated closer to their loved ones and home. And in education, the Coalition Government's commitment to creating designated data plans for distance education students is another initiative that every Australian should be proud of, because it's abhorrent to think that the quality of education for children in Maranoa and other regional electorates is determined by their postcode. This initiative keeps families from having to leave the regions and invariably secures the precious human capital we need to be the most productive to build better regional communities. Physical connectivity needs to complement our investment to the digital economy. Our roads and rail are the arteries of Maranoa, and while I acknowledge the social and safety benefits of the Coalition's $1.6 billion investment in the second range crossing for Toowoomba, the real beneficiary is Maranoa. The connectivity this infrastructure will provide in building efficiency into our exports will be profound, and the return in real dollars to towns right across Maranoa. Coupled with the inland rail, which is one of the great visionary builds of our generation, It will build the framework for innovation and investment that will deliver further opportunity to Maranoa. It will create an Australian export hub right on our doorstep. These two key infrastructure assets will be further complemented by the new Wellcamp Airport, which will see Maranoa's produce exported around the world and again provide Maranoa the tools of the 21st century. Mr Deputy Speaker, the story of Maranoa from an agricultural perspective is that of just add water. While ultimately that lies with Mother Nature, there are a number of man-made initiatives that can also play a key role in developing Maranoa and inland Australia. The Murray-Darling Basin Plan has had a significant impact on communities in Maranoa. The balance has been weighted disproportionately without an understanding of the social and economic impacts on our communities. The responsible stewardship of our water is something every Australian takes seriously, and now we have an opportunity to reset the triple bottom line. The Coalition's commitment to the $2.5 billion water fund is a significant step in acknowledging the power of water to local regional economies. This initiative has set the foundation to reset the mindset around water usage to one predicated on science and technology and not a blind green agenda. The Coalition Government has committed to exploring two projects that potentially could transform communities across Maranoa. Transferring the nearly 150,000 megalitres of recycled water a year from Brisbane to the Darling Downs potentially could contribute to addressing the triple bottom line sought in the Murray-Darling Plan. Building a business case for the Emu Swamp Dam potentially will also give just as much significance proportionately to the Stanthorpe and Granite Belt region. Having worked in banking in Stanthorpe, I can assure you of the value that a megalitre of water can contribute to not only the agricultural sector but the entire community. While water infrastructure will not only stimulate Maranoa, it will build resilience for dry times. There are many in the central west and southwest where water infrastructure opportunities are limited, but the Coalition's investment in dog fencing is also building the resilience and opportunity of diversification of many graziers affected by drought. The economic return not only to the producer but to regional community is exponential. But so too are the environmental gains. The protection of vulnerable native fauna is something that this initiative has also achieved and should be supported further. Continued infrastructure investment that connects us in Maranoa to a global economy is critical. I believe any investment by government in Maranoa would not be one of a handout, but one that can be prosecuted on an economic case that we can demonstrate will progress not only Maranoa but the entire nation. Maranoa contributes more per capita GDP than the Gold Coast, Toowoomba or Townsville. 3 regional councils in Maranoa alone contribute more per capita than Brisbane City. Maranoa's unemployment rate of 2.62% reinforces our economic credentials, our resilience and our work ethic. It's important to remember that this contribution to our nation has been achieved through one of the worst droughts in living memories over the last 4 years. Mr Speaker, it would be remiss of me before I close not to pay tribute to the party people who have guided and counselled me over so many years and for the tireless work during the campaign. To Phil and Angel Sturgis, Jen Tunley, Denise Gites, who is also here, Dawn Scrimmager and Fiona Gasky, to name a few, for all their work, I am humbled by your support. To run a campaign across such a vast electorate with 119 booths was nothing short of a Herculean effort. To Gary Spence, the LNP president in Queensland, my sincere thanks to you for your support during the campaign, a friend I've truly gained through this. To my good friend and mentor Lawrence Springborg, thank you for your support, friendship and guidance over so many years. I can only hope that in some small way I can emulate the dignified and statesmanlike way you have held yourself over a long career in public office. To my National Party parliamentary colleagues, both here and in the Senate, Thank you for your congratulations and support. I am in admiration of the collegiate and nurturing culture that you have preserved as custodians of this great party and to which I now commit myself to. But above all, I look forward to working with each of you to progress regional and rural Australia. Mr Speaker, in closing, I would like to pay tribute to my family, my wife Sarah and our 3 boys, Tom, Hugh and Harry. They are a constant pillar of support for me, and for that I am truly grateful. I also pay tribute to my parents, Brian and Peter Littleproud, who have shaped me into the person who I am today. I've had a privileged upbringing, not in a material sense, but in that I have never wanted for anything that I've needed. For that, I am eternally grateful. Mr Speaker, I'm proud to say I'm the product of Maranoa. It's allowed me to build a career, start a business, travel the world and, above all, raise a family. No matter how long I'm given the privilege to represent the people of Maranoa, if the only thing I achieve is to provide those same opportunities to our current children and the generations to come, I will have succeeded, and that is all I ask. Thank you.
Great.